Well, Ted, let's get to SummerSlam. It's in East Rutherford, and I've become something of a Ted DiBiase expert since starting this podcast. And before I started the notes for this show, I was kind of racking my brain. I was like, who in the world did Ted wrestle at this event? So I'll pass it to you. 35 years ago, do you have any idea who you wrestled at SummerSlam '89, the year after you and Andre took on Hogan and Savage?
I don't have a clue.
There's a good reason that you don't have a clue, and a good reason that I didn't have a clue. After spending most of the summer working with Dusty Rhodes and then randomly working against Hillbilly Jim for a while, at the second biggest show of the year, you're in there with Jimmy Snuka, with no build of any kind. And as a matter of fact, you and Snuka didn't work together at all in the lead up to this. Like I said, you're working with Dusty Rhodes and then Hillbilly Jim. So it's like, it's just a cold match. Out of nowhere. So, I mean, you main evented SummerSlam the year prior. Would you say that it's frustrating to get a cold match going into this? Or again, were you just like, hey, whatever, it's just the job I'm being asked to do?
Yeah. I mean, here's the bottom line. For all of us, you can complain, you can, but here's the deal. You're in an organization now. The territories have all gone away. You could throw a fit and quit and go somewhere else. Well, there was nowhere else to go.
Right.
And the more cooperative I am with them, in my opinion, the better they're going to treat me in the long run.
Absolutely. And there was one other option, a viable option, which would have been the NWA WCW at this time. However, you could go get that Turner money, but you're also running a risk of getting bad creative. You're no longer on the biggest stage in wrestling. Their marketing machine is nowhere close to what Vince's is. So to your point, it's like, hey, look, just take the damn money and do your job and do as well as you can, and the cream will rise to the top, right?
Yeah, exactly. You always gotta, it's kind of like you can't be on top forever as a heel. A heel has to, he eventually he gets to the top, but he's going to get knocked off. Well, then, he doesn't have to go to the bottom of the card, but now because they're always grooming a new heel for the champion.
Now, as a heel that's already been to kind of like the pinnacle in wrestling, what do you have to do to get back to the top of the card? Do you have to change anything about yourself or your presentation?
No. I mean, enough time goes by, and then it's just kind of like then they when they made this, when I did the angle with Jake. Okay, so. No, we weren't the main event, but we weren't at the bottom of the ladder either, were we?
No, a very strong angle.
A very strong angle. That's just it. It's like, your superhero, your Hulk Hogan he's there, and that's the guy you keep feeding fresh fish to, fresh heels, and they have their run with him, and they get beat, and they go back down, and they start working their way back up, and that's the deal. You don't go all the way to the bottom, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes, it does make sense.
Yeah. And, back in the old territory days, if you were a heel like that, you go through all the baby faces and get to the main guy. Like in the Amarillo territory, it would be the Funks, and then once they beat you, well, then you got to go away for a while. I go to another territory. And then come back a year later or whatever, 2 years later, and you're fresh again.
That makes perfect sense. Yes. And I think that the other path back to the main event for a heel, now that I'm sort of thinking this through, is that Hulk Hogan is going to be replaced by some other baby face, whether it be the Ultimate Warrior or Randy Savage. And then they're going to need somebody to work against. Well, why not bring the $1 Million Man back up? So, it's and good points. Now, as far as yourself and Jimmy Snuka was concerned, did you feel like you two had some decent in-ring chemistry? What did you think of Snuka?
Oh, yeah. I had no problem with Jimmy.